with the animation industry. You see, many people know that both animation, video games, movies, books, the whole shebang is not in the best state right now. In fact, it's almost the worst it's ever been. With multiple political issues going on in the world, AI, and all sorts of stuff, most people don't want to think about that stuff, and they kick back to relax to their favorite movies and stuff. However, in this day and age, that is simply not the case. Why? Because of greed. And because of every studio, movie, video games, all trying to make it that you own nothing and will be happy with that. But the real problem is actually a lot bigger than that. Why, yes, most of these issues stem from bloated budgets, layoffs with every studio, movie, or video game, and creative bankruptcy, and political messaging. I will not go into detail on that because politics are something that is a little bit too, I don't talk about that sort of stuff here, but I will mention it. But I found something else. As I was helping my father load up a bunch of clothes into the back of a car, a laundromat to be clear, something started getting me thinking. Why are all these studios and movies failing apart from those main issues, AI, greed, and creative bankruptcy? And that's when it hit me. They're failing because of a poorly made cycle. A cycle that I took the liberty of drawing out for you. Alright. So here it is. I wrote in blue marker so the camera could display it. So our main issue goes a little something like this. The studio is in trouble with a bunch of bankruptcy and a big money. Basically, any movie like Sponge, basically a studio like Disney, Sony, or a video game company like Nintendo or Microsoft are in peril. Their games or movies aren't doing it anymore. They're not hitting the numbers they hope to hit. And they just feel like they've lost their way. Then all of a sudden, a competitor shows up with some really new, interesting, groundbreaking idea. An archetype or a concept that's never been done before. Say, it's Sony making Spider-Verse. Then, the studio tries to make something similar to that work, but without truly understanding what made that good. They'll only look on the surface of the idea and think, oh, people like it for X, Y, and Z reasons. They'll try to make a poor copy of it, and it will fail to work in any way, shape, or form. They bomb at the box office, and then we're back at square one. So, the cycle goes, studio in trouble, competitor makes something better, studio attempts to make something that matches the competitor's work in a better or different form, without truly understanding the source material or why it's great, because they don't think about the deeper ideas and only look at what's on the surface. They bomb the box office, and then the cycle repeats itself. Now that might sound like the stupidest thing you've ever heard, but let me give you a few examples where this cycle definitely applies. Let's start off with 2018's Spider-Verse. During this time, Disney, Warner Brothers, and DreamWorks were not doing so hot. And then all of a sudden, this brand new movie that has this unique art style without any reason or idea whatsoever shows up. Spider-Verse, the first one, Into the Spider-Verse, had an interesting story, good characters, and a really cool animation style, thanks to the newer technology that we have. However, just saying Spider-Verse is good for how it looks is not, or its budget is not the main reason it's good. Hi, Tails. It's good to see you, my friend. And I will be getting to some of the stuff you're talking about. The reason it's good was because of the writing and the story. It respected the source material, but it also knew when to break from it. It was willing to be funny. It was also willing to be emotional. It didn't try to lecture you about politics or some other nonsense. And it was a good story overall. And that is why we like those types of movies. Now, I am not saying taking inspiration from an art style or from an idea is bad. I want to make that very clear, so don't go thinking that. Because you can take ideas or borrow ideas from other people and just do go with it, but you have to make it transformative or put your own spin on it. A good example, take Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Mutant Mayhem. That movie specifically took aspects like Spider-Verse's comic book art style, but translated it into a different sense. Instead of looking like a sharp superhero comic book you would normally read, it tries to make itself look like drawings that a kid would make and having this unfinished, slightly unsymmetrical design. And this is further backed up to use as a way to promote the end. Hello there, Brandon Jordan Kajongas and Jameson Blazer. I butchered those names probably, but welcome to the stream. And the main issue is that there's nothing wrong with that, and it tries to show its own idea and its own identity by using that art style as a way to push the emotional field. You know how music can sometimes reinforce what you're seeing on screen, like what's going on, as a way to give you a sense of immersion? Well, the Ninja Turtles animation style specifically tried to do that exact same thing. You see, due to the fact that they think humans are always violent, or because of the idea that they're hostile, most of them have an unfinished or unsymmetrical, uncanny valley look to them, which is why it looks the way it does. However, after the Turtles save the day and prove themselves to be not harmful, you see more human characters who have more symmetrical designs and don't look off. That is how it did it. It copied Spider-Verse's design slightly, but did its own work with it. And that's how I think inspiration should work. Meanwhile, Disney took one look at Spider-Verse and other movies with that cool paper-like art style and just said, let's make something like that, but let's not put anything interesting about the story. Like, I can't tell you that Wish was a good movie because it just generally wasn't. It was bad, not just because of the art style that attempted to do something similar to Spider-Verse, but tried to be more like a clean storybook look. The real reason it failed was because of three reasons. Number one, poor storytelling. And number two, Hollywood's failure to understand its audience. And three, AI. Now, there's a big claim going around that Wish was AI generated, and why I'm personally mixed on the idea. I can understand why people say that, considering some of the lines in the songs or in the dialogue sound AI generated. Like, there's this one song with Magnifico, who, by the way, isn't even a villain. He's just a good guy who was turned to do wrong. He literally says, I let you stay for free and I don't even pay you rent. Those are the same exact thing, and he said that in the same exact sentence. That's how you know it's AI generated. And that movie did bad because of poor writing and because Hollywood didn't think, oh, the guy's not gonna think deeply on the story because it's not that deep, bro, when realistically it is. People hated how Wish's story showed the idea of a person being selfish and hurting others for their own personal goals. Like, he literally chose to be... The main character chose to be careless just for their own selfish reasons without disregarded the voice of reason. And that's my issue. You can take inspiration from something and try to do your own thing with it, but don't just assume that people are not going to think about your story or your writing and just shove everything in haphazardly and just expect it to work. No, that's not how it's going to work, and that's not how it's going to be. You need to think of the structure, and you need to think of the idea that people are going to look at this and think to themselves, that doesn't make sense. That's a very dumb idea. Of course, Disney ran on stories with simple plots and no deeper meaning or structure, like Pinocchio, but as they grew, they wrote more and more interesting stories. The only problem is, those stories were created on a risk, on an idea. Walt himself, when he first came up with the idea of making a long feature animated film, everyone thought he was mad because back then cartoons could only run for a few seconds or a few minutes like a short, not like YouTube shorts. And we have a Q&A sticker. Let's take a look at that. Your dream gaming setup. Like, oh, that, well, I am currently working on my setup. I did just get a new case for my PC, which I'll get to work on building that later on. But anyways, it all comes back to this cycle. A studio that doesn't know what it's doing, looks at a competitor, but only looks on the surface of the story and not understanding the deeper messages. Tries to create a copy of that said thing or that tactic and fails dramatically. And then the cycle starts over and over and over again. Like, every type of genre and story has its place and time, but not everything has to be that way. This is why people say that not every movie has to be like a Marvel movie, or not everything has to be like Deadpool, where it's always sarcastic and never gives the viewer time to breathe or think about anything. And people don't hate those types of stories. There are some people who enjoy those, but at the same time, you need to acknowledge that it's not for everybody. Everyone has preference and different ideas, and you need to think about that. Not everyone wants politics in their show being shoved down their throat. Not everyone likes a thriller. Not everyone likes horror. Not everybody likes a cheesy comedy filled with satire and crude jokes. Because whenever there is an idea that's taken or a risk that's made, everyone tries to copy off of it or take aspects from that to make their own work. And sometimes it works, but sometimes it doesn't. For every Shrek, we get an 8 Crazy Nights. For every Avengers Endgame, we get Falcon and the Winter Soldier. Hello, everybody. Sorry I ignored you. James Brasilia, Tails, and E.G. Gozaru G5R. Good to see you all. But the point is that the reason Hollywood and all the bigger studios are failing is because of the main reasons we've all come to understand: AI, greed, creative bankruptcy, and all the normal things that are suspect. But also one other important aspect that no one's understood is their lack of variety. Think about it for a second. How many Disney movies keep on following the same by-the-books numbers or ideas of a theme or a concept that you've seen one too many times? How many movies or ideas fail to give you something new? How many ideas fail to take a risk or never get out of the storyboard? Better yet, think about the animators and creators who just sit behind a desk all day and do almost everything for their studio or their job and never once get their name written in the credits. Think about all the unspoken people behind there. It's not just because of the normal subjects that we've all come to know. It's because of this poor cycle. The studio's in trouble, so it copies, and then there's a competitor who makes something, takes the risk, and makes an idea. The other studio, this guy, looks at this and only sees what's on the surface and doesn't think about the deeper story that was written in it. They attempt to make something similar that takes the ideas or copies it without any real structure or reason. They bomb at the box office and then wait for the next random good idea to show up to take, and the whole cycle repeats over and over again. So, what's your take on this? Do you think I'm just pulling crap out of my butt, or do you think I'm actually having a good take or a good opinion on this? Let me know in the chat. Also, let's take a moment to read the chat for a second. Chuck E. Cheese using AI sucks. The SpongeBob movie sucks. Yeah. Hello. James Wonderman said hi. I can be a mod. Tails, what do you mean you can be a mod? Your take is pretty valid, NP. Oh, thank you, Tails. You know, to be honest, I've enjoyed your work and I've enjoyed talking to you through most of the chats for these videos. I genuinely just thought about this entire thing while I was working with my dad and just thought to myself, yeah, this makes sense. This cycle makes a lot of sense because I can apply this to anything right now. You want an example? Here we go. The console wars during the era when every console was stepping into 3D. Nintendo tried to start out with doing something random with their own work, just going with what they did before when they made the N64. And why it did good, it didn't do as well as other consoles like the PlayStation or the Xbox. Why? Because those consoles took a risk and they were able to optimize or design better controls. Another reason, and then later on we got the GameCube, which, why it did follow those ideas from Nintendo and Co. with the idea of beating their competitors by choosing to go with what they did, by choosing disc over cartridges. They made stupid decisions like, oh, I don't know, making the disc smaller than they need to be just because they were paranoid that people were going to pirate these games. Or you want another example that applies to this? Grand Theft Auto. When the first GTA game came out and it showed multiple aspects of how people can just do whatever they want, cause a bunch of damage, commit crimes, blow stuff up, and all that edgy stuff in the 90s, a lot of game studios thought, oh, hey, everyone just wants to blow crap up and do edgy, mature crap. They don't want any structure or any interesting games, which is why we got a bunch of games that copy GTA very poorly. Some of them did it good and made their own series, like Saints Row 2 and Red Dead Redemption, but essentially the issue is there's a lack of variety when it comes to making things in the entertainment industry. There's a lot. Can I be a moderator? What's that mean? Tails, what do you mean you want to be a moderator for this? Anyways, back to the point. The point is that a lot of reasons why the studios of today are bad isn't just because of bankruptcy, layoffs, AI slop, and a bunch of other aspects. It's also because of studios' failure to make and create things with variety and different ideas. The idea that they could take a risk. Back then, games were willing to do bold and random ideas, willing to take risks to make something new. But nowadays, everything is sanitized, sand down to be marketable, and just very samey. So, in all of this tyranny, what do you do? What do we do in this dark, dark, trying time? The answer is simple. We create. You don't have to make something major, just try to make something in general. Be it a piece of paper, an animation, or something else entirely. Support indie animators or indie creators. How do you do that? Well, maybe they have a Patreon, or you could go to YouTube. As for gamers, you can head to the new website being made by the YouTuber known as a real-life fake wizard known as Fake Portal. You can support them on Steam. What else? What I would say was support people who are willing to try to make bold decisions. People who are willing to make interesting pieces of art. And people who don't fall victim to the same 4-part, 5-part cycle. I am Player Negative, and I will see you later.